أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Continuing on with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the legendary government and military legacy, the era of Sayyidina Umar bin Al-Khattab, after completing a total of 30 videos of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam's legendary military career and a total of 50 videos of the legendary military legacy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the era of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, a total of again 50 videos. Now in the 45th video of Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab, the legendary military government of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, page number 149, 2.1. Point 3. But prior to that, Umar stated that the means of attaining goodness is patience, because of the path of goodness is not paved with carpets, rather it is rough and thorny, and traveling it requires a great deal of struggle, jihad fi sabilillah. So the one who wants to travel this road must equip himself with patience, otherwise he will give up part way. Umar said that fear of Allah means obeying Him and avoiding disobedience. Then he explained the greatest motives that will make a man obey Him, which is hatred of this world and love of the hereafter. The greatest motive that makes a man disobey Allah is love of this world and hatred of the hereafter. Then he said that hearts have signs of faith, and he gave the example of dealing with people on the basis of truth when one is angry and when one is content. A man should not let people's praise make him try to please them by turning away from the truth, or let their criticism of him make him mistreat them or be unfair towards them. Umar stated that one of the hidden signs of faith in their hearts is wisdom, and that flows from the Muslim's heart onto his tongue, and that he is loved by his Muslim brothers. For Allah's love of his slave is connected to the Muslim's love for him. When Allah loves a person, He makes him beloved to his slaves. If Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, who the Prophet had testified was one of the people of paradise, needed this advice, then how about us who have so much less understanding of Al-Islam and are failing so far short in applying it? 2.1.3, a khutbah sermon by Umar. Sa'ad went to Iraq accompanied by 4,000 mujahideen, or it was said that there were 6,000 mujahideen. Umar radiallahu anhu walked out with them to bid them farewell from Sirar as far as Al-Awas. Then he stood up to address the people and said, Allah sets similitudes for you, and uses different figures of speech to revive your hearts, for hearts are dead until Allah revives them. Whoever knows something, let him benefit from it, for there are signs of consequences of justice. Its signs are modesty, generosity, gentleness, and softness, and its consequences is mercy. For every matter Allah has made a way of dealing with it and a means of achieving it. The door to justice is learning lessons, and its keys is asceticism. Learning lessons means remembering Allah by thinking about the dead and preparing for death by sending on good deeds. Asceticism means taking dues from everyone who owes them and giving them to everyone who is entitled to them without making any conscious concession to anyone in that, and being content with what is sufficient of basis necessities. For it, if a person is not content with the basic necessities, nothing will make him feel independent of means. Allah has obliged me to deal with supplications on His behalf, so bring your complaints to us. Whoever cannot do that should bring them to one who will convey them to us, and we will restore his rights without him having to do much at all. Sa'd arrived in Iraq and the death of Al-Muthanna. Sa'd traveled with his army until he stopped in a place called Zarud in Najd. The Khalif sent 4,000 men as reinforcements, and Sa'd was able to mobilize a further 7,000 from Najd. Al-Muthanna ibn al-Harith al-Shaybani was waiting for him in Al-Iraq with 12,000. Sa'd stayed in Zarud preparing for the decisive battle with the Persians and waiting for the command of the Khalif Umar radiallahu anhu, who took a keen interest in this battle and did not leave any commander, wise man, noble man, powerful man, orator or poet, but he sent them against the Persians. He sent the most prominent and powerful people against them, while Sa'd and his army were encamped in Zarud. Al-Muthanna became gravely ill. The narrators say that he had sustained wounds received on the day of the bridge, reopened this started bleeding. These wounds did that, and he realized that the end was near, and his path grew intense, or his pain grew intense. He appointed Bashir ibn al-Qadisiyyah to be in charge of those who were with him after he died. Al-Muthanna asked for his brother Al-Mu'anna and told him his last wishes, and asked to convey them to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. Then Muthanna surrendered his soul to his creator, and his son that had filled the conquest of Al-Iraq with bright light finally set. In his final advice to Sa'ad, he told him not to fight his enemy and the enemy of the Muslims when they were mobilized to the fullest extent in their own land. Rather, he should fight them on the borders of their land, close to the land of the Arabs and close to refuge from the land of the Persians. If Allah granted the Muslims victory over the Persians, they would be able to capture all the land that lay behind them, and if the outcome was otherwise, they would be able to retreat and join the other Muslims. Then they would have better knowledge of their routes and would feel more courageous in their own land until Allah returned things around in their favor. How similar were the last moments of Muthanna to the last breath. How similar they were. The last moments of Khalifa Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Very similar. Both of them left this world when they were thinking of the Muslims and giving advice concerning conquest. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq died when he was advising Umar and encouraging the people to conquer Iraq, and Al-Muthanna died when he was passing on the fruits of his experience in war against the Persians to the new leader of the war in Al-Iraq, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. As he breathed his last, he was thinking, planning, and giving advice to Sa'd. When the advice and suggestions of Muthanna reached Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he prayed for mercy for him and issued instructions that Al-Muthanna ibn al-Harith be kept in his position and that the members of his household be taken care of. And it is worth noting that Al-Muthanna left instructions that his wife Salama bint Khashfa at-Taymiyah should marry Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. Sa'd proposed to her after her iddah was over and married her. Did Al-Muthanna want to be kind to his wife after he passed away by letting her marry a great hero, one of the heroes of Al-Islam, whom the Messenger of Allah had testified as one of the people of paradise? Or was it that she was intelligent and wise and had knowledge of her husband's experience in war, and he wanted to benefit the Muslims thereby? Both are possible. This is a small example of the abundant virtues of the great generation. It is true. Sa'd marched to Iraq, and Umar's advice, the command came from the Khalif to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas to set out from Zarud to Al-Iraq in preparation for the decisive battle with the Persians. Umar also sent the following advice: I am ordering you and the troops who are with you to fear Allah in all circumstances. Fear Allah is the best weapon against the enemy and the strongest weapon in war. I am commanding you and those who are with you to be more careful in avoiding sin than in avoiding your enemy, for the sins of the army are are to be feared more than their enemy. The Muslims are supported by their enemy's disobedience towards Allah, or if not for that, we would not have any strength, for our numbers are not like theirs and our weapons are not like theirs. If we were equally matched in sin, they would have an advantage over us in strength, and if we did not have an advantage over them by our virtue, we would not be able to defeat them by our strength. Remember that you have over you protectors from Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, who know what you are doing. So feel shy before them and do not do any acts of disobedience towards Allah. You are striving for the sake of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Do not say that our enemy is worse than us and we will never prevail over them, even if it will commit. You are striving for the sake of Allah. Do not say that our enemy is worse than us and we will never prevail over us and will never prevail over us, even if we will commit sin. And people may be defeated by others who are worse than them, just as the Christians of Israel were defeated by the Kafir Magians when they did deeds that angered Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. As he says in Surah number 17, ayah number 5, they entered the very innermost parts of your homes, and it was a promise completely fulfilled. Ask Allah for help against your evil whims and desires, just as you ask for help against your enemies. I ask Allah for that for us and for you. Be kind to the Muslims on their march. Do not exhaust them on their march, lest they reach their enemy weakened from their journey. For they are marching towards an enemy that has not been traveling, that has strong horses and riders. You and those who are with you should rest for one day and night every week, so that they will be able to regain their strength and lay down their weapons and lives, belongings. Do not camp near the towns of people who have a treaty with us or are under our protection, and do not let any of your companions interact with them except those whose religious commitment you are confident of. Do not annoy any of those town people at all, for they are protected and you are being tested with regard to fulfillment of the treaty, just as they are being tested with regard to their patience in adhering to it. So long as they are keeping their promise to you, keep your promise to them. Do not seek victory against your enemies by oppressing those with whom you have a treaty. When you reach the closest point of enemy land, send out spies, for none of their affairs should be hidden from you. You should have with you Arabs and local people whom you trust and who you feel are sincere, for the news of a liar will be of no benefit to you, even if he tells you the truth sometimes. The dishonest one is a spy against you, not for you. When you draw closer to the enemy's land, you should send out scouts and raiding parties to cut their supply lines and try to find out their weak points. Choose people of wisdom and strength among your companions for these missions, and choose the best horses. If they see the enemy, the best way to deal with them is by means of good advice from these people. Put the people of jihad, patience, and toughness in charge of these raiding parties, and do not show favor to anyone on the basis of whims and desires, because this may affect the whole affair and lead to bad consequences. Do not send any scouts or raiding parties in a direction in which you fear they may be exposed to dangers. If you sight the enemy, then bring them back, your scouts and troops, but do not hasten to engage in fighting unless you are forced to, until you have had the opportunity to fight out their fatal weak points and have studied the land until you know it as well as its people. If any prisoner is brought to you with whom you do not have a treaty, you should execute him so as to strike fear into your enemies and the enemies of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu is the best disposer of affairs for you and those who are with you. He is the one who gains victory to you, or he is the one who grants victory to you over your enemy, and Allah is the one whose help we seek. The great speech contains useful advice and shows us an important aspect of Umar's greatness, namely his great experience in military planning. Divine help and guidance can clearly be seen in all his commands and advice. We can sum up some of the important principles included in this advice as follows: commanding the army to fear Allah and to be dutiful to Him in all situations. This is regarded as the primary weapon, and sin is regarded as the primary enemy, after which comes the kafir's enemy, the enemy or the kafir enemy. So the first thing is the sin. This is the biggest enemy. Number two, drawing attention to the fact that there were angels keeping a close and constant watch over the Islamic army, and pointing out the importance of feeling too shy before them to commit sin, because it makes no sense for a man to commit sin when he is in the battlefield fighting in jihad for the sake of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Number three, affirming that it is quite incorrect to take the enemy's behavior as a standard to justify the behavior of the Muslim army. Number four, bearing in mind the constant need for Allah Jalla Jalaluhu's help. The second principle, which was affirmed in Umar's letter to Saad, is thinking constantly of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, emphasizing the sanctity of the towns whose people have a peace treaty with the Muslims, and taking means to guarantee that their safety is not violated, protecting the Muslim image from any bad reflection that could affect the success of communication between Muslims and non-Muslims by punishing crooked behavior on the part of some Muslim individuals. In an effect to achieve this principle, Umar radiallahu anhu ordered his commander to pay attention to the means that could help to keep the army's morale high and help it to reach the land of the enemy still able to fight. He said, be kind to the Muslims during their march so that they will be able to regain their strength and lay down their weapons and belongings, after affirming the importance of protecting and ensuring the safety of the troops and weapons of the Muslim army. Umar radiallahu anhu pointed out that prevention is better than cure, and that one of the most important weapons of the army is to appear with proper Islamic behavior, in which words and deeds are in harmony. As a protection, Umar forbade the army to camp near the towns of people with whom the Muslims had peace treaties, so as to avoid the possibility of some transgression that could negatively affect the relationship he wanted to establish, and so as not to allow anyone except those who are trustworthy to enter the towns, to ensure that the treaty would not be violated and to oblige the people to adhere to it. Umar's letter also pointed to a third principle, which was using different methods of dealing with people depending on their relationship with the Muslims, and not burdening them with more than what they could bear. Umar asked his commander not to oppress or mistreat the people with whom the Muslims had treaties for the sake of seeking victory over those whom they were at war, and to seek the help of those whom he trusted of the people in regions that were close to the regions of the conquest, and on the basis that there should be some trust and confidence. Example, he should be careful not to give full trust and not to go to the extreme in trusting. The fourth principle is gathering sufficient information about the enemy. Umar drew attention to the importance of relying on scouts from the best elements of the army in gathering information and equipping them with the best weapons that the army possesses. That is because the enemy may discover them and force them to fight, so they should be strong and powerful so as they can create the desired psychological impact on the enemy, making them think that the army is strong and giving an impression of using force. The fifth and last principle mentioned in Umar's letter is appointing the right man for the job. The aim of gathering information about the army is not so much for the purpose of fighting them as it is a precaution in case the other side forces the Muslims to fight. Hence, after taking the means, the Muslims should refrain from fighting, but be prepared for that if necessary, whilst taking the utmost precaution. Inshallah, we will stop here on page number 157, going into the bulletin 2.1.6, seeking the help of former apostates who had repented. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك وتبارك اسم ربك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.